got you.
They should just let us whoop his ass, dog.
Bro, I swear, if we rush their ass right now, they can't stop nobody.
Oh, they done pulled the van up to the door so they can sneak a shit out.
Hey, that's
They
some
sneaking
bitch
shit out.
ass shit.
They sneaking shit out, dog.
Put that nigga on display. Put
Show that nigga
motherfucker
face,
on
dog.
display now.
Show that nigga face. My shit got blurry as a motherfucker. Clear up, iPhone. Oh, they sneaking niggas out, dog. They sneaking niggas and bitches out. Look at all the motherfuckers coming out of there, dog.
Hey,
Look at all the dog.
hey.
Hell no. Hell no. That van don't need to leave.
They all in that van. It's kids coming out in handcuffs.
Hey, make way for the camera. Make way for the camera, man.
They snuck these motherfuckers out of here, dog.
I can't breathe.
That was some hoe ass shit. Yeah. Yeah.
The footage you just saw there was recorded Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The alleged events taking place are children, in handcuffs, being escorted out of a home by police officers. On Sunday, June 21st, 2 young teenage girls from the neighborhood went missing. Police were not responsive to reports that the 2 girls were possibly being held within this house. What resulted was a massive community response from the neighborhood, which ultimately led to a violent standoff with police. But before we get too far into those details, what does the local news have to say about all this?
Of officers at the intersection of 40th and Lloyd, and then there are dozens of police vans and squad cars parked down Garfield. They kind of tossed stuff out the windows. They also broke into a wheelless van that's parked behind the house, and they've kind of been going through that and sifting through some of the stuff inside of that home. Chopper to news base, they're starting the van and the house on fire right now. They started throwing burning debris inside the back window. You can see that's starting to catch fire now. The van totally engulfed in flames. The police were just up the street about a block at the intersection of 40th and Garfield when this was all happening. That big old rope of smoke and flame just shot out of there. We saw tornadoes of flame and black smoke belching out the side windows. You can see just how hard it is for the neighborhood, for traffic to get through the neighborhood.
So this time last night, a well-known community leader stood alongside Milwaukee's police chief to address the events that all unfolded.
With the recent protests across the country and here at home, both sides agree that now is the time to make changes. But how do you do that?
It was just like a war was about to break out between the police and the community.
Community activist Tracy Dent takes us back to what it was like on 40th and Lloyd Tuesday as a large group of people clashed with police.
I've seen rocks and bottles and stuff like that been thrown at the police officers. Officers are just human beings just like you and I, you know. So they probably got a little aggressive to some of the people, and it was back and forth. It was back and forth.
Ultimately, the chaotic scene led to a house catching fire as well as shots fired that left several people injured.
3 people got shot yesterday at the... I'm sorry, and there 2 of them with children. And it was just... We have to work with the police.
But how to work with police becomes the challenge, Dent says, when the distrust in the community runs deep.
All we're doing right now is putting out fires. And the fire is just rekindling and starting all over again.
Dent stood side by side with Milwaukee Police Chief Alfonso Morales Tuesday night at a press conference. Today, the chief said more communication like this is what we need.
And he tried. He tried hard. He tried to say this is not the way to do it, and try to bring some resolution to it to show that it didn't work.
Dent believes now is the time to act with what are historically the most violent months in Milwaukee still ahead this summer.
We all have to wake up. The police, the community, we all have to wake up. We're going to have to work together if we want to slow down the pace of the violence that's going on.
Morales says he'd like to see more people like Dent come together in the future and help with police reform to get to what he calls Milwaukee United. Reporting outside the police administration building, Tom Durian, TMJ4 News.
Now we have a story from Medium.com. Unheard Voices. Are police participating in sex trafficking in Milwaukee? This massive story begins with an unfortunate common incident. A young black child went missing on Sunday. This was not the first, nor was this an isolated incident, as other families began to suspect that someone was behind this. According to a tweet by someone following the case, the parents had contacted authorities who had stonewalled, saying that they were not endangered. As a result, no Amber Alert was ever issued for the now 2 children missing. On Tuesday night, the mother of one of the missing girls was able to ping their cell phone to a 2-story townhouse in Milwaukee. The mother, along with several others, went to the property, in addition to calling the police, who ignored them for 10 hours. An attempt at entry was made, and someone from within the house shot at the group. No injuries were reported. The shots were heard much louder than the phone call, and police arrived at the scene. The people within the home were taken into custody. Immediately after, the report from people on the ground starts to diverge from the police and media narrative. After the arrests were made, a crowd began to form, and cops began to circle the original location, as well as a second location that was deemed to be connected. Many social media posts and live springs began to spring up. During this, a search party of people recovered 2 girls from the location. Police on the scene claimed to have not seen any children during their search, something that is flat out untrue. The pictures and videos that were recorded by the search party were heartbreaking. During the search party, unknown people were taken into custody anonymously via tarps and placed into an unmarked van. The owner of the property was claimed to have escaped by police, and yet people on the ground claim that he fled in a van parked on the second property.
Which house is it?
That's the house where the
Which
man
one?
just went in
Which
there.
house? That one?
The man that owned the vehicle where the babies got, he was in the house and he won't come out. The young man had already fought the music.
This house right here?
And he ran in there and they housing him in there
On
and they won't let him out.
2152?
The one that owned the van.
Which house?
Right here, 2152. He in there and he won't get out. They keep lying and saying that he ran out the back door, but I was back there. He did it.
Sometime after, protesters noticed a fire in the second location as well as in the van. While police claim that protesters started the fire, people on the ground had not yet entered the van nor the second property, of which police were first on the scene to. In an attempt to salvage evidence, people entered the home and found several documents already burnt near the center of the blaze. Some papers were recovered, including what is allegedly a schedule of what time the girls were solicited out, and the name of someone who was connected to this. That name was of a property owner, Mike Barch, a disaster recovery specialist who had been working as a spiritual leader for children at local youth camps. This person serves as a senior board member of this group, and has been working with them as far back as 2014, though he does have other ties to local Lutheran groups. Another identity recovered was the name of Roderick Bowie, a registered sex offender, who had apparently been in repeated contact with the trafficked people, of which there are 20 missing children suspected of having been sent through this home, according to people familiar with the area. One girl was found nearby in October, and police had apparently refused to investigate further out of lack of evidence, though bloody clothes have been found around the area. The home has been politely scrubbed by the former realtor in an attempt to further obfuscate this tangled web, though archives are available. Shortly after this, riot cops came to the location and began attacking people who were stationed outside this area. Despite overwhelming evidence that there was a trafficking organization, they shot rubber bullets and tear gas at the people attempting to investigate. Due to the infinite compassion of the people, no officers were harmed. The firefighters began to put out the blaze as people drew back. Finally, nearly 72 hours after this event had started, the media began to arrive with a helicopter to survey the area. The first write-up about the story to appear online came from a local ABC station. This article was only 18 sentences long and repeated nearly verbatim what the police had said. For the 20-plus black children, they get less than a sentence each for their stories. Their names and families will be plastered all over local news forever, and yet not a single breath was given to the people behind this. Out of respect for the little black girls whose lives will be forever changed by this ordeal in numerous ways, I refuse to print their names to make them part of the spectacle. As for the Milwaukee PD, their first media soundbite was that we have not confirmed that the girls were found because they said they have not been contacted. As for Police Chief Alfonso Morales, he claims that no evidence of trafficking has been found, and that the unruly mob will be investigated as well. In a theater world where black bodies murdered by police are constantly on display, This brief peep show into the dark underbelly of this trauma cabaret shows that the police are, at best, not on the side of the communities they claim to protect, and very well may be actively serving interests directly against the towns on their badges. As mentioned in the article, national news is ignoring this story altogether. At a time where abolishing the police force is mainstream attention, not even right-wing conservative groups like Fox News are touching the story. Surely one could easily spin the narrative as an example of what will happen when police are defunded and pulled off the streets. Angry mobs running off of rumors and potentially threatening innocent people's livelihoods could be a common occurrence. The chaos that unfolded during the incident was pretty extreme to say the least, and details are not made very clear. Before the house and van parked outside were set on fire, a pair of boys' swim trunks was discovered in the van.
Kids, bro.
As for the fire that broke out, from the live streams I've watched, there's never a consensus from the crowd to start the fire. In fact, after the initial search of the scene, the police fall back only a few blocks. Shortly after the fire breaks out, the police return. Also worth mentioning, multiple people on the livestream point out a cop who has the phrase "pure evil" tattooed on his knuckles present at the scene. It is also reported that after cops arrived, men in orange shirts are seen coming to and from the house. If there is any truth to what the community is saying regarding the issue, then the police aren't only protecting those involved, but they are openly, in broad daylight, abetting them. With the evidence now torched, any new details have yet to emerge.